With 11 of the warmest years on record, all occurring in the past 13 years, and Greenland and Antarctic ice sheets that regulate the flow of ocean currents melting at rates much faster than climate scientists predicted even a few years ago, the extreme weather we've been seeing over the past few years could, I say could, be a sign of more disastrous weather patterns to come. Joining me now to discuss a new climate report on extreme weather is FOX11 meteorologist Pablo Pereira. And Paul, say your last name for me.
Bunje.
Bunje.
Just like the chord.
I didn't want to say that because I remember hearing it earlier, but it is Bunje, Executive Director of the Center for Climate Change Solutions at UCLA. All right, so we're talking about extreme weather. Let's talk about what this report specifically said.
So this report takes a look at what climate is going to what it's looked like over the past 50 years or so, and what might be happening in the future. And of course, weather is a function of that climate. And so what we're talking about are things like heavier rainfall, much higher temperatures, and there's a lot of confidence that that's going to increase. And then all the other things that result from that, floods, cyclones like hurricanes, other types of weather events that might occur, and of course heat waves, which is something that we here in Southern California are going to probably be experiencing much more frequently.
Well, Paul, many of the things on that list are detailed for certain parts of the world. What about here in Southern California? What specifically is the IPCC report referring to locally?
Well, so one of the ways, and it's difficult to disaggregate what happens at the global scale, the whole world, to a local scale, because there's not a lot of data. But in Southern California, we do have a pretty good record of some things that we know are going to continue to happen. That's things like heat waves. We think that, well, we're very confident that temperatures will continue to rise, as we've seen over the past 50 years or so. And we're probably also going to see less precipitation, less rainfall. And you add those two things together, and then impacts like wildfire are likely to increase, because wildfire, it thrives on dry chaparral and brush, and of course high temperatures.
How can you come to any real conclusion with just 50 years of study?
Well, so there's a lot more data than just 50 years, and you can actually go back using other type. You can measure the temperature.
100 years or 200 years. How can you do that?
Well,
in a world that's very, very old, and these cycles and
that's
things?
something that this report has been very, very thoughtful about. Scientists are very cautious to say what they do and don't know, what they have confidence in or some idea about. And we have extremely high confidence in the fact that temperatures have warmed. And that's been repeatedly demonstrated globally and in local places like Southern California. Other things like cyclones are much harder to measure. They're very complex. They come from sea surface temperature, the warmth of the ocean. They come from winds. They come from a whole host of things. So there's less data, and it's more difficult to know how confident we are in it.
So what do we have to do here in Southern California to get rid of some of these concerns, do you think?
Well, so this is an important point of both the report and something we need to be thinking about. Regardless of what's causing the climate to change, it's pretty clear from the scientific data that it is, and that will continue to happen. And so we need to start learning how to adapt to a changing climate. And that's things like building more resilient communities, being aware of what our city, our infrastructure, our communities can do to be prepared for the unexpected. Frankly, a lot of this is going to be expecting the unexpected. And doing this in a way that reduces the vulnerability, especially of populations that are already vulnerable. So if you talk about heat waves, these affect people that don't have access to air conditioning as much. Right. And so we can start thinking about ways of providing cool spaces for them, or better providing access to transportation to move away from a house that doesn't have air conditioning, for instance, if it's a heat wave. Things like that will help us adapt.
Well, Pablo?
We could spend a long time on this.
I could go on and on.
We have many more hours to talk about this, but we're running out of time. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Well, they aren't warm and fuzzy. They're dangerous and deadly.
Saw a guy who was asking very basic questions about buying a snake, and I am thinking to myself, this guy has no clue what he's getting into.